We were talking last week in Galway, and one of the texts that came through to us was, has Paolo ever tried mashed potato with black pudding?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I thought about that and I said, no, I hadn't. Half an hour after I left you, or maybe a little longer, I was in a restaurant called Brasserie on the Corner in Dominic Street, in Galway.
Yeah.
And I'm looking down the menu, and there it said, main course, hake, served with mashed potato and black pudding. I thought, right, no, that has to be. I'm going to have that. And sure enough, it was delicious. It was very nice.
And
it's all mashed through with the mash.
Yes.
Crumbled in with the mash. I thought it was terrific. It was a great idea, and it tasted great.
I wonder how they kind of judge the proportions of how much black pudding to how much mash.
I don't know.
It's an easy thing to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many things that you can add to mash that really make it great. I remember the first time I ever got mash with wasabi put through it, and I thought, wow, stroke of genius.
Yeah.
Because it's delicious. It's like almost like mashed potato with horseradish, except it's green.
Yes.
But there's so many nice things you can put into mashed potatoes. It just takes in the taste, and it's great. You know, poached egg on top of mashed potatoes is always very nice, isn't it? Especially when you let the yolk run into the mash and mix it up.
No, I've never had that.
That's very nice. Oh, it's really good.
You need to say that. Has Paolo... Rob says, has Paolo had any tongue lately? The sliced version. I asked my butcher and he said he hasn't seen it for years either.
Well, I do it from time to time, but I have learnt this. I've learnt something very important about cooking tongue, which is you cannot serve it sliced to anybody. Because if you serve it sliced, they look at it and they say, that's tongue, isn't it? And you say, yes. And they say, I'm not eating that. I don't know if I told you the story. I learned a terrific recipe for tongue from a friend of mine in Italy. And it calls for, you cook the tongue long and slow, which is normal, say 4 hours on a simmer. And then you skin it. And then you cut it into cubes. Not into slices, into cubes. So I had it in cubes. And the next step of the recipe is to put those cubes into a frying pan with a tomato sauce, which you've already made. And I'm actually in the process of tossing it in the tomato sauce when my daughter comes to visit me. And she walks in the door and she says, oh, hi, Dad. And I say, hello, Bella. And she says, what are you cooking? Beef, I said. She said, can I have some? I said, of course you can. So we sat down together and we had a bowl each of the beef. And she was eating it, and she said to me, Dad, she said, that's really good. She said, it's very tender. Is that fillet steak? And I said, no, it's not. And we carried on eating. She came back to the subject again. She said, but, I said, what, was that an expensive cut of beef? And I said, no, actually, it was free. And she said, what do you mean free? I said, well, Terry gives me, that's our local butcher, in Terry Cavan in Ramwood. And he said, no, Terry gave it to me. She said, well, what is it? I said, it's tongue. And she went, oh, God! And then she went over to the sink. She started gagging. And I said, listen, 2 minutes ago you were telling me how good it was. Yeah, I didn't know it was tongue. Oh, God!
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of weird, isn't it?
It's the thought of it, yeah, that has that effect on people.
So when you put it in cubes, people don't know it's tongue and they think it's fillet steak.
Well, that just shows you how good tongue is, that people can't think it's fillet steak.
Terribly tasty. And I was watching one of those BBC nature programs, I can't remember which one about the seas with Dimbleby, and it was killer whales killing a beluga whale. And they do it by grabbing hold of their fins and drowning it. And once they've killed it, the first thing they fight over is the tongue. Because that's the tastiest bit.
Yeah.
Then after they fought about the tongue, then the other bit, the rest of it. But tongue is what they go for first.
Would Paolo know the name of a slimy mushroom, oozes milk, white underneath, beige in colour, around 15 centimetres across, says Joe?
If it oozes white milk, if you peel it, if you just take the skin back a bit, white milk comes out of it, it's from a group of mushrooms called the Lactaria, which is a group of mushrooms...
As in lactation.
As in milk.
Yeah.
As far as I know, one member of this family is good to eat. It's the woolly milk cap. It's one the Russians like it. The Russians eat it a lot. Otherwise, most of them are not particularly good to eat. They're not poisonous, but they're not particularly good to eat. And it comes into this family called Lactaria.
Mushrooms have great names.
There's wonderful names out there for mushrooms, and some of them the slippery jack.
Yeah.
That's a nice one too. And it is just as its name suggests.
Yeah.
Slippery, slimy. It's a yellow thing. It's member of the same family as the seps, but it grows under fir trees and pine trees, and it's yellow and slippery and slimy. And if it's just been raining, it's even more slippery and slimy. It's nasty to the touch.
Anna says, of all the really posh restaurants in Dublin, Thornton's, the Glasshouse, Dax, Chapter 1, etc., which is Paolo's favourite? And if he can't say that, what should be one use as a yardstick to judge them on? I thought Chapter 1 was nice because they gave you lots of bread.
I think
bread's a good point there. It annoys me if you don't get bread beforehand.
I do think bread should be on the table. I think it should be part of it. And the other thing I never understand about the whole bread issue is this thing that's unique to this island, which is as soon as your starters have finished, the bread gets whipped away and your side plates get whipped away. Why? I might want a bit of bread with my main course.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to hold on. My left hand is always trying to hold on to my side plate, and sometimes I leave a bit of bread on it in the hope that that'll dissuade them from it. You still have to fight. I'm like, no, I'm keeping that. Well, I don't understand that. How do you define a yardstick? I don't know. I think yardsticks evolved from eating in lots of different ones. Now, I think it's true to say if you eat in Chapter 1 or L'Écrivain or Patrick Quibeau's or any of the Michelin-starred restaurants, and I would put the Greenhouse into that list as well. There is a level of food and a level of skill coming out of the kitchen and inventiveness as well, which you don't normally get. And hopefully, as well as that, you will get the level of service that should go with it as well. That, of course, goes towards what you're paying for. I can't really say I have a favourite. I'm more inclined to go for styles of food and then do a bit of that for a while and then try another one. I am very fond of all the restaurants I've just mentioned. I think they're all very good, and I've never had a bad meal in any of them. The interesting one to me was this year was the Greenhouse, because I thought that was kind of inventive. There was new things that surprised me, things that astonished me. As well as being skillful. So, yeah, any one of those would be. If you were taking me to dinner, you could take me to any one of those.
Okay, there you go. So there's a date there, listener. In fact, let's bring Paolo to all of them on 4 or 5 consecutive nights. I was told that to know if a kidney is fresh, it would smell like pee when you're frying it, says Paddy.
I'm not sure about that. I kind of think that they shouldn't smell of wee, and I don't really like them smelling of wee.
Yeah, I would have thought that would have. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I would always give them a good rinse anyway, to make sure that they don't smell of wee. I am very fond of kidneys, I have to say. Lamb's kidneys in particular, I'm particularly fond of them.
And as you've said many times before, we overcook them. We have traditionally overcooked them.
Keep them nice and pink, and they're delicious.
What's the name of the restaurant Paolo liked in Florence? EJ wants to know.
The one I had a terrific meal in was a 3-star restaurant, 3 Michelin star, called Pinchiorri. That's Pinchiorri. It's one of those restaurants that deserves its reputation because it is very fine and very luxurious, beautifully appointed, service is fabulous, food is terrific. However, if my memory was better than it is, I'd be able to tell you my son, who spent 4 years in Florence as a student, went to a restaurant quite regularly that he liked enormously, and of course, being a student, he could afford it. And if I could remember the name of that one, I'd pass it on to you, but I can't.
There you go. We got one anyway.
You got one.
That's the most important thing.
You got the 3-star Michelin, super expensive one.
They'll just have to make Ruffet then, won't they?